Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings. So today I'm going to discuss another Judith Tarr book. I somewhat like, I quite like Judith Tarr much of the time, although I never really, I tried her Avarian Rising series and it just didn't speak to me. Devil's Bargain is actually part of a two-parter. There is a sequel to this, and I have read it, but it just doesn't grab me as much as this one. It's a perfectly valid follow-up, and if you enjoy this book, you absolutely should check out the sequel. But I don't own the sequel, and I didn't feel like going out of my way to get it. So, Devil's Bargain. Devil's Bargain is another round of Judith Tarr's, the thing that she writes about is the medieval period around approximately the time King Richard lived. The Hound and the Falcon trilogy starts off with somebody who is following around King Richard. Pride of Kings, which I did weeks ago, also is about King Richard. Well, it's tangential because it's really about Prince John, but Prince John, King Richard, it's all bound up together. So, if you don't remember from the last time, this is a writer of historical fantasy. I have been somewhat unreliably informed that historical fantasy as a genre is really the creature of Guy Gavriel Kay, but historical fantasy is a genre where you set something in the historical past and then say, but if magic had been real, here's stuff that could have happened in the past if magic were a thing. And what she writes in this is actually an alternate history. She even goes into it at the bit at the end of the book, in which she talks about how Richard Lionheart's crusade it dribbled away at the end. She says Richard gave up his war in the very moment when he might have won it. And Saladin lived to claim the victory, but was exhausted in many ways a broken man. And then Richard is taken captive, and there's that whole Robin Hood plot about collecting enough money to break him out of German prison. The thing is, Devil's Bargain posits that what happened with the interference of magic from various sources is that Richard actually won his crusade and actually made it to Jerusalem and actually got Jerusalem back for the Christian crusade. But Richard is not the protagonist in this. The protagonist in this book is an illegitimate half-sister to Richard. And her name is a Celtic name, Sioned, Sioned. For the record, S-I or S-E in Gaelic is pronounced as an S-H much of the time. That's why the name Sean, S-E-A-N, is pronounced as though there's an H in there. That's because Gaelic is written weird, because I'm not entirely certain what language Gaelic was transliterated into. And if you want to talk about transliteration, that is the act of taking the sounds of one language and writing them down in the text of another. This isn't really the place to talk about it. But transliteration can occasionally lead to some weird spelling outcomes because somebody is trying to figure out how to depict the sounds of a language when your language doesn't actually have those sounds in it. Anyhow, neither here nor there, an entire side issue, and that's why these are called ramblings. So, in Devil's Bargain, Shoned winds up... She is a magic wielder, a person who has the ability to cast magic. And in the course of this book, she winds up falling in love with Saladin, or Salah al-Din, to be slightly more historically accurate. Salah al-Din Yusuf ibn Ayyub. And he has a brother, Al-Malik al-Adil Saif al-Din, who is generally called Ahmad, and who the Franks, the Westerners invading the Holy Land, call Safaddin. One would assume to match his brother Saladin. Anyhow, the two of them fall in love, and there's a love story between them that runs through the book. Most of Judith Tarr's books have a love story happening in them somewhere. And also, Richard is gay in basically all of her books, which I haven't done enough looking into Richard to know if that's genuinely indicated, or if, as has been posited, is a single throwaway line about two kings sharing a bed one night, which could just as easily be the fact that in the Middle Ages they didn't have the same concept of privacy as we do today. In any event, so there's a love story between Shoned and Ahmad, which is interesting because he's a Muslim and she's a pagan, old-style Druidic pagan. So there's that. There is the fact that Richard's mother, Eleanor of Aquitaine, who was a power in history, and Eleanor is a sort of a dark witch, somebody with the ability to do magic who has chosen to make deals with the devil. It involves the head of the assassins, the Hashishayun, the old man of the mountain, Sinan, who is a real historical figure, although it is very much doubtful that he in fact had made a deal with the devil literally to give him power. But Eleanor makes a deal with him, and then Richard asks Shoned to find a way to kill him, which means that for part of the book she's on this quest to try to kill somebody who's made a deal with the devil. And the other major player in this book is a young man named Mustafa. And Mustafa is a Berber, B-E-R-B-E-R, and a Muslim, and he is in love with Richard, and has sort of... People with a certain amount of scorn took to calling him Richard's dog, and then eventually it just became a somewhat affectionate name for him, and he sort of laid claim to it. And he plays a very, very important role in this. He plays the role of messenger, of go-between, when Shoned is taken captive under suspicion of being a member of the assassins, because, of course, the rampant prejudice of, well, she's not a Christian, therefore she must be an assassin, because reasons. When all of that happens, Mustafa is the one who gets out and is able to get to Ahmad to ask Ahmad to get Shoned out of what's going on. Devil's Bargain is interestingly a title that kind of is layered in many ways, because Eleanor made a bargain with the devil in order to get her son onto the throne of Jerusalem. And she made a bargain directly with Sinan, who is in a lot of ways an avatar of the devil, as part of trying to get her son onto the throne of Jerusalem. Sinan made a deal with the devil in order to push his agenda for power. And then Ahmad, when he finds out that Shoned, who he is now thoroughly in love with, has been taken captive and will be executed, he makes a deal with Sinan, who is standing in for the devil, and who says, we have this deal and you will pay a price for having made this deal. And so everybody's making bargains with the devil here. About the only two people who don't seem to have made a bargain with the devil on some level. Pardon me. My allergies decided to kick into high gear today. The only people who don't seem to have made a bargain with the devil in the end are Mustafa and Shoned, because Richard, by virtue of cheerfully ignoring the fact that his mother has been arranging things through dark magics to suit herself, sort of condones it. So Devil's Bargain is a book about temptation, about a lot of people making a lot of deals, and it's also it is also a book about love, but it's a book about jealous love because Richard's lover Blondel is jealous of how much Richard likes Mustafa. It's about how Mustafa loves Richard enough to understand that Richard is a king and has obligations of kingship, and that he is able to learn to deal with the fact that Richard has to say, I know these men arranged for you to be tortured. I know that they did terrible things to you. But as a king and as somebody who is at the head of an army, I need them to win my war. When I've won my war, then they'll pay. And Mustafa is able to learn to deal with this. It's about the love between Shoned and Ahmad, who are not only on opposite sides of the war, but she is pagan and he is Muslim. It's about how much she loves and cares for her brother, such that she will do what she needs to do to support him. It's about how much Richard cares about the people around him. And it's about the fact that Eleanor loves her son and loves him so much that she will do horrifying things, such as things that involve people's souls being eaten, such that there will be no paradise for them, there will be no heaven, their souls just got eaten. And she's behind this sort of thing because she cares about her son. And so it's a book about love in a lot of different ways. It's a book about, and so not to indicate that this is such a tremendously deep book. It's a rip-roaring fantasy tale. But as with any book that is worth reading, there is something in there more than just, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. Devil's Bargain does make a small amount of a departure from the writing style that she has used in other books. That in many of her other books, there is a formality to how people speak that we today might feel is a little bit artificial. And it's clearly a stylistic choice, but this one has much, much more informal language to it, which makes a difference, and it's slightly jarring if you're used to Judith Tarr. But I enjoyed it. It's a fun, rip-roaring tale, and there's love and death and sacrifice and high drama. And I find that the characters are well realized. I don't have much else to say, so thank you for coming, and I'll see you next week.